So today we want to work on the Requiem further, meaning further advance in the advance, and some parts of these ideas, meaning that we want to understand how to actually caps an emotion, meaning what we meant by write an emotion or inside the write. There would then be, of course, the histoglyph in again variation, but also just in basic form to this idea. So we don't really need to envision the result of the events, meaning this process here that we discussed last time. We do need to invoke the voioi again, and we do need some sort of initiation for this process to actually work. If you don't are yet familiar with the concept and still want to take a listen to this video, well, we're happy about the click, and if you want to leave a comment, like anything, dislike, go for it. So this is all about channeling yourself, your higher spirit, right? So understanding what is of meaning, what is of night, and where the shadows derive yourself from what is truly of you and what you want to achieve, blah 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 blah. Now, this time we're not really correlating it to the mirror in magic, but about the mirror thesis, meaning we do want to have some kind of devotion to what we mirror in ourselves, meaning the goals we mirror to ourselves being ourselves. But the reflection is what is the outcome this time, to any degree of what the order is bringing to intertwine with the histoglyph informed by what is then the invocation of what is to caps and insight, meaning in right, the basis, and therefore thus the emotion. So as I said, if you're not familiar with these concepts, you could just try at first to envision mathematical symbols in front of your mind. Like if you understand mathematical symbols, to view them and view any abstractive thoughts, then, well, you can channel something towards it, like your inner light or your energy or something. Meaning, if you don't and just want to listen, well, hey, I don't care. So it's all about the use of spirit, right? So if we go back to Requiem 2T to 4, we had the idea that we get from the histoglyph a sort of magical element that is an abstract idea of what we want to achieve. Now, this is, of course, to draw something like an existing pattern of what is to become the root. Now, this is not this time so important, but we do want to discuss one word before, meaning sentenize and visibilize. Visibilize is to view the shadowed, ciphered derivations of what is then the spirit to be, but not to imagine it, meaning to make it in a form, but visibilize is thus to idealize it already in such a form that it is anti-imagined by imagination, meaning imagined, anti-imagined, not anti-imagined, meaning totally and anti-anticipated, and what is then anti-imagined derived from this, which we come then to the word sentenize, which is of the same idea, meaning you now basically put this to a string if you want to put it in syntax. And that's also where it's derived from, meaning you visibilize something to something that is could be real but is not real, meaning, for example, a face that has like shadows and is of nebula and is not real or something like it. and now you sentenize the idea of that idea to what is then of what is then to be of the root of nature from spirit pattern. Meaning what you visualized, you now sentenize to any higher degree of accordance with what is then to the nature of the spirit and derives itself from the histoglyph. Now, the Zimat is then supposed to help you with that, meaning you should, in all cases of scenario, caps that which thus would make the instance of what is to be about. Meaning the symbols, numbers, and syntax that would be envisioned by the Zimat, they are what you are working towards, basically. Now, as said, all of this has a high cost and therefore danger of getting your mind out of idea, meaning out of touch with yourself and your own mind. But that is with all of magic and meditation of such degree, eh? So yeah, initiation. What do we actually mean by insight and emotion? Well, that's the point. If you understood that you have these symbols of the voyeur conjured by your mind by inciting the initiation through the process of events directed towards what is the voyeur or voyeur, you could now do the process of initiation and further use the events, right? To develop it, and overdevelop it, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth, blah, 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 blah. Meaning, at that point, then we come to the idea that that is, in this initiation, not so much of matter, because you now want to imbibe the right, meaning citing the sentenized, which is to be the manifest by power of what you derive from the histoglyph by the visible eyes. Now, sounds complex, might be. So how would you do this in a basic idea? Well, if you want to caps that emotion, meaning channel your emotion towards something and therefore enwrite an emotion, you need to understand basically this process here. Understand the process of how the symmetry orders, and then understand how 5 comes to be by initiation of your own. Now, the Requiem II.X, meaning the avance, sorry for the bad French, is what was to be devote yourself to the power of Lumini, meaning guard that of what is in order when you try to work with the voyeur. Now, we understood there that it is using the initiation of the Requiem. Now, if we use this technique, meaning we invoke what is the voyeur, or voyeur, or voyeur, or voyeur, or voyeur, or voyeur, and channel events towards that, which is that result, meaning the syntax and the numbers, we tried to work with that. Now we cut the last step out, meaning step 4, to understand what is of lumini and of light, and put that at the end of our work with these ideas. Now, if you understand the reflection by channeling towards this ideal, you understand that there is this mirror thesis in magic, which will be next video more in detail explained. Now, if you got that, now with the Zimet, you can cause what is not of the opposite, but of the direct towards what is then in right thy spirit. Now, if you understood that you can initiate yourself to this process by cutting the last step out of the events and therefore enwrite an emotion, You understood where this idea is going, meaning literally not, but kind of in the metaphorical sense, hinting to, but not really as well. So, which is then the instance of forming something from this idea and correlation that you form between these ideas, of which is there, of also lately your own being, meaning everything of that which is there is yourself, meaning your own by your deciphering derivation and then explanation, but decision to that which is this. Now the histoglyph, if now explained the process, would then Google. Now the histoglyph is then nature of that will become of your work, right? If the histoglyph is patterned. Now this pattern, if enwrited by the Zemat, which is of course used for this understanding here, because you need to use the Zemat to use this, but only to a degree. The Zemat is useful for this. It doesn't need to be used. In the Requiem, we now would usually go to the process of invive, take no step, hold the fort. Well, this time we want to do something different. We want to invive our emotion that we want to channel towards the ideal, meaning the number, the syntax, any of this sort that we want to work in and wove in our spirit to that syntax number that is in us without any further influence of what is of the outside. And when we would usually take no step in this, we just hold the fort till we can invoke the voyeur to the degree where it stabilizes the events to some idea of which will where is it? Give me a second. Which will then cause the visibilized sentence, meaning sentenized or sentenize, to the stable voyeur. And we do this by inserting the visibilize with the events. Meaning we invive, meaning enwrite an emotion, meaning conjure up an emotion that we want to channel towards the voyeur. Invoke the voyeur to understand where, and might do this before. That's why the Zemat is so interesting and important, to get the order of thoughts to process where we want to go with this idea that is that of a magical nature and outcome. Of slightly being of any but not, meaning just is of our own spirit. And invoke the voyeur to channel the events towards that which is of this. Now, when we usually would recycle initiation to get further and developing the voyeur to get on with these two steps, we just skip to the last step and understand and try to understand the reflection by the guard of the jurisdict from the mirror thesis. Meaning we try to get this emotion projected onto what is of the voyeur, weave it into what is supposed to be there, and this weaving process happens by using this events in the initiation as second step. Meaning when we would now take no step, we hold the fort till we cannot project anything into that idea, meaning we formed something like when we tried to form the histoglyph, meaning a complete element of such of its own that has its own stable idea of which is of us and just us, but can have inspiration of something that is a thing in the world, because we are working here with numbers and syntaxes, right? We can work with a tree, but that's fairly dumb with the voyeur, if you understood it, and it doesn't work. Meaning we do this and hold the thought by using the advance till we can take no step, meaning until the advance is too much to bring about what is to sentenize, not anymore, meaning this visibilize is at sentenizing towards what is of the requiem. And in the requiem we memorized, we want to understand how we come to finding a right by darkness hold. This is again darkness hold. We are working with our spirit, our mind, projections and mirror images of our own spirit in the own spirit, to finding what is then of which point where the take no step of the initiation is achieved. And if that is of sort achieved, there will be of idea that there will be something like a reflection, a response from the vacui. And this response can be in so many different ways. Last time we discussed, then after we discussed the events, on how to form some kind of path, some kind of way from this idea, right? Well, this is especially where it's going now. We invite something like that can be channeled towards the emotion of the vacui. We understood we need to do this till we cannot hold the thought, meaning we recycle the advance, meaning the advance, to something that is of the histoglyph, but not forming something that would be of symmetric order, meaning not visibilizing to further work with it, but to sentenize it. And that would then be of use of the element to invite our spirit to that element. Meaning, at that point, we formed something that is of this, but it's not an element as per se before. Now it's an element, not an elementary element, how you could call it, but not should be called. This would be a piece then. Piece, like an element. Now, we want to now understand what formed that mirror thesis in our mind that came and made this of us, which is that to be, meaning caps that which thus would make the instance of forming the histoglyph to this power that it is of itself, meaning being its idea. And there the initiation starts as usual. We hold the thought, we initiate ourselves to take no steps, we hold the thought if not too much, we invite the process over and over till this at first take no step to hold no thought is achieved to a degree that is then of non-nature to the spirit by sub-derivation of conscious, meaning stand still what it is, but it is not our direct manifesting spirit, but still yet not beyond our control, which the spirit and any part of the spirit should never be. It would be bad. Now, very thus, which is to the emotion, now gets replaced with very thus, which is not of the fundamental element of the vacui that you choose to manifest your emotion towards. And then we basically can work with that image that draws itself from this by nothing that is not of the element, and how we understand that emotion that we have towards it better if we mirror this emotion towards what is of our goal of our work, meaning that element or piece of element, but not elementary element. So understanding the process of symmetry ordering by such element is now fairly irrelevant. It is basically understanding how the symbols, number syntax symbols of the vacui become not, meaning it's not about how they are apparent anymore, but how they are now reordering to what we're channeling towards it. Now, usually, of course, you would do this, but the neat trick that now makes this process apparent, why I'm explaining this so long, is because if you understand that this is not of darkness whole, but rather to incite a right to it that gets you to a new initiation to work with more ideas of magic, then this is to basically search what would set anew without the first incitation, meaning the Bible word. This is basically now replaced by a process that doesn't need the usual initiation to be righted. And thus the mirror thesis can be now viewed in a different idea than we before had discussed in the previous video. Thus, the envision of the result of the event is not to recycle the initiation now, but to process the cycle of it, and not cycle it to mid back and forth by its own idea, meaning of that which is you, recycle it to you and only your mid, but only anything that is of you. No, sorry for the bad explanation there. You should not fuck yourself. Not mentally either, in my mind. Meaning, usually you would recycle the initiation to build a new cycle of it. With this, you process what is the cycle. And yeah, at that point, we then don't want to understand what is of lumini and of our light, but we want to understand where that channel breaks, meaning at which point the channeling of emotion and the reflection of emotion is not the same as what we are invoking in the voyeur, and where the reordering of such is disrupting that. Okay, fundamental psychological process, get it. Now, the problem is, how do we enwrite that now in our spirit to the feeling, meaning the emotion we want to capturize? Well, wow, that is explained in the previous past process, but now careful, it's not but the opposite. Use the element of histoglyph. Yeah, no, don't use the histoglyph. Use the element of initiation to something that is like the histoglyph. The histoglyph is now just something, meaning something like what you want to work towards. Now, enwrite thy emotion to the voyeur, caps that which would make the events break the order of the voyeur. Understand the process of such, which is then to not mirror your emotion, meaning that it which is breaking the reordering in such a way that that process ends up with something that is like of the histoglyph, and thus understand then which is breaking the order when you mirror your emotion towards that which is now solely not even of your own being your imagination, which would be in the mid of your initiation and anything of the initiation, surrounding initiation, but the initiation, blah blah blah. But now understanding where this order that you created in your spirit, which is of you, of your own spirit, and coming and beginning in your own spirit, and so forth, as now previous sentences, being the emotion that is not mirrored in the same idea that is of the voyeur, that you just created from yourself, being yourself, but only yourself in the beginning, and unseen, and blah blah blah. And then you understand that this would jurisdict the histoglyph from what is not the voyeur. And there you can start to work, in my mind, in our mind, with where the histoglyph gets you to some idea of what will decipher the basis for the cement. So this is helpful for further work with this idea. Thank you for listening.